So anything we need to talk about, like anything that's like, okay, shut up, we need to talk about this now.
The
Anything like that?
pressing 10-minute beginning of the show, I don't have anything. I mean, we have football tonight. That's really all there is to talk about. But now it's just sitting, burning the time till it's on.
Oh, and the Hall of Fame game tonight.
I'm ready. I'm ready, Gov. I'm a DJ man. I'm ready. I broke it down for over an hour today. Different positions. Build DraftKings lineups. Why don't we do this? Why don't you tell people without even you can get into who got injured or the big training camp news outside of the obvious, we don't want people to get hurt. Is there any other big takeaways or even media do they overblow something? Sometimes they do that with injuries. I know Gardner Johnson went down for the Lions a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to be honest, I was annoyed because it was almost like people wanted you to have a visceral reaction. They didn't want you to wait on the news. They didn't want you to listen to the beat reporters and just be concerned about his health or be concerned about what it does for the line. They wanted to be like, is he out for the year or is it just a bruise? It had to be so extreme. And sometimes I feel like whether it be gambling or whether it be the long-term perspective of what Evan does, where it's like dynasty, where you're looking 5-6 years in advance, people want you to live in these extremes. It's like, what do you think about this player 5 years from now? Or how much money can I win in this DraftKings contest? Is it worth my time? And it's sometimes we lose track of what it means to be a player and what it means to be a fan. And
well, that's the thing. Preseason, I don't love to watch a bunch of preseason games because
right,
there's a part of me that it's like a guilty pleasure of we're watching people put their lives' work on the line, and they might never play another snap again and get another chance. This could be it tonight for a lot of these players. And I know it's only the first game, but it's it feels somewhat wrong to enjoy something so big for these people.
People's lives will change tonight. No matter what happens in this game, someone's life is going to drastically change, most likely.
And I want to kick it over to you guys, but I just want to make this point really quickly because, Donnie, you hit on something really smart. And we don't know Evan's situation, so it doesn't make sense. But I'm assuming we're all professionals, we're all adults. We wouldn't want it to go, the three of us at least, have full-time jobs. We wouldn't want them to go in with a microscope and check us out on our first, employment day when we're learning the job and we're learning, who to impress, what to do, what buttons to press, how to do our jobs. We wouldn't want that under a microscope and Chris Collinsworth breaking it down or Al Michaels in some case. We wouldn't want that, but that's part of the business as well, and that's part of why they make money. So there's a give and take. It's just a lot of times I don't think we don't appreciate the give and the take. We always want one or the other, and I think that's where we go wrong.
Yeah, preseason to me is much more than football. It really is, because it's just so important for there's basically half of every team's getting cut down in a month. Half the people we watch we might never see again.
To be fair, in this game, it's probably 70 to 80% because the guys playing tonight are going to be third, fourth stringers. So they're going to be the guys that are barely making the team to being cut.
The Hall of Fame game is even more intense with that situation. That's what I mean.
Gov, let's be honest. Is that heightened up, or is that better or worse for the XFL or the USFL? Do we see more maybe they won't be publicized or promoted, but do we see more of their scouts there at those games? Are those players in better shape than we've ever seen before? That's what I kind of want to do with this show. It's we all know injuries happen in training camp, but is there anything else that we can glean or appreciate even that goes under the radar during this period of time?
Off the top of my head, fantasy-wise, you'll be able to see who. This is where you'll see the late season ads. If you're doing a fantasy league, these are your deep guys.
Yeah.
Like, so seeing flashes can help, like, see that. Seeing how he's used in an offense. If they keep using him the same way, well, then at least you know how they're going to use him during the regular season when he has to come in. Like, this is why you see guys like Greg Dortch last year. When you watch the preseason for Arizona, you knew Dortch did everything Rondale Moore did. So they were going to be the one-to-one to each other.
Evan, I see you over there nodding. Do you agree as a dynasty guy? Is this like your time? Do you like really sit down with a notepad, like, or do you think like because you play dynasty or because people again assume that you need this long-term perspective, do people overvalue it?
Yes and no. It largely depends on the positions that you're looking for each NFL team, who you invested in the rookie draft, or if you picked up any deep late flyers. Like Greg Dortch is a great example, but I mean, I'm also thinking in terms of like I mentioned before the show, like a Stetson Bennett. How likely is he going to succeed as Matthew Stafford is getting older and had spent over 10 years getting beat up behind bad Lions offensive line after bad Lions offensive line, to where now you get a look at these guys in preseason to get a general idea of how they're going to adjust to the NFL. And in addition to that, get a gauge of how likely they're going to play when the main people are going to go down. So for like a backup quarterback like a Stetson Bennett, I'm absolutely going to hold him on my taxi squad in Dynasty. For somebody like Dwayne McBride, for example, now my ears are starting to perk up for him. Minnesota Vikings rookie running back, by the way. Alexander Madison got hurt. I forgot how to pronounce the guy's last name. Kene is his first name, if I remember correctly. Coaching staff have not been really impressed with any Vikings running back thus far. So I'm happy to hold on to a McBride, see if anything comes out of that, or if they end up trading for Jonathan Taylor or signing a veteran, then that's going to tell me what my future is going to look like with Dwayne McBride.
There was already a rumor that Kareem Hunt was called, which I found very interesting because Donnie's favorite team, the Patriots, did all this work on Ezekiel Elliott and other running backs and never called Hunt reportedly. So, like, it just seems...
I think that's a moral thing for Belichick. I don't think he liked the legal issues from when he was younger, but maybe I'm wrong.
But see, Donnie, that's also like what you talked about, like kind of feeling like guilty pleasure almost with training camp. It's like that's part of it too. It's like I wouldn't be ashamed because I'm just an open book, but some people would not like their job interviews, publicized and stuff like that. But that's what happens with training camps. That's what happens with this kind of like late breaking news. But it doesn't matter if we're playing Dynasty or best ball or daily. It's an information game, Gov will tell you that not being like, sports not being your main passion and you find avenues different ways. DFS, the way we enjoy it, it's information. So you give me the information, Gov, I think you would agree, and then you can play with it. And then that makes you a lineup. That makes you money. That, because that's king, really.
See, and that's where, like, the way we watch football is completely different as to where you guys are looking for something like that, and I'm just looking at the more as a football fan aspect of it.
But not everyone. Like, there are people that play, I promise you, there are people that play daily fantasy because their mom was a Cleveland Browns fan, or like there are weird reasons people will just throw away a couple dollars. Like there are people that treat daily fantasy like a lotto ticket, and they hardly know any football. Like it is kind of amazing.
It really is. Every year, whenever I see that stuff.
Evan, is there any questions you want to ask us? Because we're like a new podcast, so like the cool thing about us is that we're kind of like we're like Play-Doh. Like it's like maybe we should have more structure, maybe we shouldn't, but like we're still kind of in that formation, of like we're not afraid to make mistakes and just have some fun. Is there anything that's like popping off? Because this is the first time we spoke.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And no, I don't have any questions off the top of my head. And I think that's just the nature of our game. You can't be afraid to make wrong predictions or mistakes in the game because otherwise you don't get better, right? It's like anything else in life.
Well, you'd be a great guy to bring this up because DraftKings recently came out with Rainmakers, which I'm not even sure if you are familiar with that at all, but that's very similar to Dynasty, even more than like the lineup building, because that's basically like the stock market of daily fantasy, where they got a portfolio of players, which I guess they're using the moniker the cards, but really it's just a portfolio of players, and then the marketplace sets a price, and then based on their performance, they go up and down. So obviously, those younger rookie dynasty guys, if you can, figure out who they are in training camp, if you can watch the third quarter of this Hall of Fame game, and you happen to find a guy that's like 30 cents, and you think he's not even going to make the roster, but he's going to make the 53. That 50-cent player becomes an $8 player, and in week 2, and then that's a really good return on investment. And that's kind of what you're talking about with Bennett. With the Rams, it's like you're willing to sit on that pedigree.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's actually something I have not seen. I don't use DraftKings myself, but that's something I'd be absolutely intrigued to take a look at. I have to confess, I'm too much of a traditional fantasy football guy, not so much a daily fantasy and instant betting win money type of guy myself. I haven't been bitten by that bug quite yet.
I would say it's an easier transition that way, because at least you understand point values for guys.
And I'll show my cards just to give them an idea. This is some of the cards are based off of last year, especially the football content, but you'll get the idea this way. And I started really late, and then there's the players where you can see the marketplace. But if you got any questions, go for the guy. I know Rainmakers is kind of your thing. You're going to head that up this year, especially I think, and really get into it. But when I was speaking to him, I'm like, this just speaks dynasty to me when I see things like this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you're going to pick your guys. You're going to have them all year to play in lineups. So like that's sort of the dynasty aspect. It's not like daily where they'll have a salary and you're going to have to try to fit in the guys you like, and maybe building the lineup in a way that fits. You're not going to have all the guys you want usually. But like with Rainmakers, you basically go out and you get the cards you want, and you'll be able to play them and build your lineups every week with the guys you want. But the real key to Rainmakers, like you said, is the market aspect. As guys play well, they'll cost more. Maybe then you sell them off for other guys or for more cash or whatever we are trying to make a profit on. Because the whole point of daily fantasy is trying to make a profit. Like, you are trying to make a profit. Ideally, like we've talked before, if your process is correct and you're sticking to it, you will make a profit eventually, because we all are trying to do it in a smart way. So, like, you sort of have to be able to deal with the ups and downs, because as with any fantasy league that's season long, there's injuries, guys can have bad games, you can get a bad week from your running back or whatever, like that. Those things happen. Doesn't mean your process is wrong. Doesn't mean your team might not end up winning the season long league just because you lost the first 2 weeks of the season. Like, there's a lot of things that take into account. Yeah.
About process a lot. That's something that we always talk about, I feel like, in our reviews.
Right. Did we think about it the right way?
Yeah. I like that we always go back at the end of the week and say, okay, what went wrong here, what went right? Because then it feels like the next week we're better. It made me a better player overall in this. That's what helped me out the most. Just looking over, feeling, and trying out different things when something was working, when something wasn't working. Especially
why did we play that guy? Was that a good, smart move to play that guy? Did we just get unlucky?
Evan, how often do you do that as a dynasty guy, even yourself? I mean, maybe there's people in your league that do it more often. Maybe it's not part of your process, but like, that's the one thing that I fell in love with daily was you can have pundits on YouTube talk about, like, oh, I like this player. I like Van Jefferson this week because Matthew Stafford targets him, since we're on the Rams. And then, like, well, on Friday night, I can say that. And then whatever happens on Sunday, as long as I come back with another take on Friday. But because daily fantasy is daily and weekly for this case of the NFL, it's like you kind of put your money where your mouth is instantaneous. So that review process is like, oh, Pete Overs that said this on his YouTube channel. Now he has to own it, and like, I don't care if you're right or wrong. It's that transparency. So like, that's another thing I like myself. That's kind of what I fell in love with.
Did we want to pull up our best ball for him to look at that?
Yeah, we can probably go over that.
We can do that as well. But I don't know if are you there, Evan?
Yeah, still here.
Oh, I got you. Sorry, the question kind of got lost. But I was asking how often you review your dynasty or like have reactions, I guess, week to week. Because I know it's long term, but like week to week, how often do you adjust?
Yeah, and I can't speak to how you would play something like a daily fantasy, as that's just not my cup of tea right now in my life. But it's most definitely a much different approach, whereas you've got certain X amount of dollars on the line with every specific day of the week that NFL games occur. You have to make your best decision as of right now in order to cash in or cash out, whichever which way you have to go. Where Dynasty is not so much that at all. It's at least in my experience, it's pretty rare that you're going to be making a snap decision like that, unless your team is an absolute shambles and you got to pick up somebody just to salvage your season until the next rookie draft comes around. But aside from that, it's not really that much different from playing redraft or keep it. You start your studs or start the best you have on your bench into your lineup and hope for the best.
Well, and that's the thing, like, with the split-second decisions, it really can be split-second. We can get news 5 minutes before a game kicks off after we made a lineup on a Friday evening, and now we're in scramble mode really quick before the kickoff happens. So that's the one thing I don't love about it, but as someone who, I have Sundays off, that's perfect for someone like me. So.
Or another way I think like your world and our world kind of blend is sometimes, I'm sure this happens in dynasty leagues especially. I played in one of them, but especially like hardcore ones where you've been playing for a long time. You almost want to have like that cool pick, It's like I want to find that 6th-round rookie that comes in and performs, It's like sometimes I found in dynasty, for example, you're looking for the next Tom Brady because you're like, if I can find him, maybe it's Bennett for you, and I hope it is, man. Maybe you got something with Stetson Bennett. Whether he plays for the Rams or not, he's your asset, And it's just like, I feel like sometimes you can overvalue that in dynasty, and you can overvalue that in daily fantasy. It's like, I want to play this rookie because he's looked really good in training camp, or he played for, the SEC, and I know, like Gibbs for me. It's like, everyone wants me to have a Gibbs take. It's like, well, you're a Lions fan. He's a rookie. It's like, he's going to catch passes. He's Kamara. It's like, yeah, but I don't need to play him week 1. Like, it's a daily fantasy sport, but I don't need to play him week 1. I can sit and wait and see how it goes. So how do you assess that kind of risk reward?
So that's I guess I haven't thought of it that way before. Whereas what I consider to be a fatal flaw style of thinking is judging a player based on the college program they came from. So like I try to push away the thinking of, oh, I got to go get these Ole Miss wide receivers because you get guys like AJ Brown and Elijah Moore and studs like them come out of that university. I got to get myself an Ole Miss guy. But Traquan Smith didn't work out for the Saints. So it's a lot of pushing away a lot of noise, a lot of hype about certain guys. And I feel like that kind of plays into what we were talking about here with the preseason training camps. And now we're starting to get into the preseason games. You can't get away on Twitter from all these guys that are hyping up somebody like Trey Lance missing a pass in training camp. It's like these are the opportunities that each player is going to take to work out their kinks, and they're going to make mistakes. that doesn't necessarily carry over into the regular season if they've got the job. Preseason games will tell you a little more about where they're thinking, but maybe the San Francisco 49er quarterback room is also a bad example too, because that's A, the most talented quarterback depth chart, and B, the most unknown quarterback depth chart right now. I mean, we think we know right now it's going to be Brock Purdy, but is it?
Like you're right. Like he's the 7th round last pick in the draft. Why would you not, if he's healthy and showing any signs, play Trey Lance?
Yeah.
I give you that. That is definitely the most unknown quarterback room.
Not to mention that, but you also have another former with 3rd overall pick in Sam Darnold. Like you have 2 top 5 picks, former top 5 picks at quarterback, and then you have a guy who's almost carried you as far as you can go.
And they say Brandon Ayuk's going to have his best year. Like apparently, there's a lot of things coming out of camp saying he's ready. But if he's ready and Debo's ready, and then you got
I've heard the Ayuk thing's ready for 2 years. It feels like.
Yeah, I know that. All I'm saying is like if you got all these weapons around, you got to put your best quarterback out there. Whoever that is, we don't know. We're just fans. If we knew,
and best does not mean most talented.
Exactly, and there's also that scheme and
we all know Brock Purdy is not the most talented of even Darnold. Forget Trey Lance.
So we do have a hard out, though. We do have a hard out, and I do think it would be really cool because we don't always get it where a guy can give us a first perspective of a team that we drafted and kind of give us his snap judgment of what he thinks of our best ball team. Very similar to kind of how you would build any other fantasy team. So this is our team here, wheels up. And I think we drafted out of the 8th slot out of a 12 team. And so
9th slot.
9th slot. See, math was never my strong suit. But what do you think about our team here as you just kind of look through it? Like anything stick out to you? Anything?
So since I'm not as familiar with daily DraftKings best ball leagues, I have to.
This is season long.
Season long, rather. Excuse me. So I'm not as familiar with the format and how quarterbacks and tight ends are valued. So I don't know if there's like a super flex slot or what would this be?
No. So there's a quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, tight end, flex that gets started every week.
Perfect. Okay. So I would say, at least based out of the 9th slot, we're in a strange new era of fantasy football in which running backs have lost a lot of value in the first 2 rounds. So
especially on DK, because you get all the DK points. So that's full point PPR and a 3-point bonus for 100 yards on rushing or receiving.
That's especially good to know as well, which would be perfect for
normal
guys like
4-point passing touchdowns for quarterbacks.
Right. Yeah. So based on that information, that's perfect for guys like a Stephon Diggs and an Amon-Ra St. Brown, who are not only going to get the volume, but they, to what I've seen out of both of them, have excellent breakaway and stiff arm talent for their position, similar to like an AJ Brown, where I like my chances with those 2 guys being touchdown machines for both of those teams. So those first 2 rounds, perfect for building a lineup like this. But the point I was going to get back to as well, too, if you had shown me this lineup in 2016, I'd have thought you were nuts, because back then running backs mattered so much in the first couple of rounds in vanilla redraft leagues or just any plain fantasy leagues. And now we're in the age of the wide receiver, and running backs are being disrespected in contracts and pay, as we're all seeing in the news. So going 1-2 with Diggs and St. Brown, chef's kiss.
That's exactly how we felt.
I would have taken Chubb, but I would have liked to have had a slightly lower pick. Like now Chubb is more long. He's started to go up. Like, what do we have in this draft? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it was like 9 running backs in the first 2 rounds. Normally, yeah, you're right. Like 5-6 years ago, that would have been 12 to 13 running backs in the first 2 rounds.
And
easily.
I should preface this by saying this was the first week that best ball was offered through DraftKings. So
yeah, this is a very early draft.
This is a very early draft. We are going to do a very end of season or end of training camp draft, so that way we can compare and contrast throughout the year. So I do think those were the two biggest peaks of the year. So, Evan, if you want, you could break down this whole team. You can give us your overview. You can take this conversation wherever you want to go. I just thought it'd be a fun way to kind of merge or marry the two ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. No. So then, as I mentioned, the first 2 rounds perfect for what you have here. I know it can be nerve-wracking if you're used to drafting running backs in the first couple of rounds to go wide receiver, especially if you plan on punting to another guy like a Ramondre Stevenson, who has shown that he can take the lead back position for the Patriots and just run with it for great volume and I mean, touchdowns are too hard to account for, but I always get nervous with the New England running back room with Bill Belichick because knowing how he operates with his backs, it'll be Stevenson one week where he'll go, I don't know, 15 for 89, and then the next week it's going to be Kevin Harris, I think that's his name, and then just for no reason at all, Pierre Strong, just because Belichick felt like it.
And they're bringing a bunch of vets in for interviews and stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And it was a shame that James Robinson didn't work out, but I don't think the Stevenson owners are complaining about that.
No.
Yeah. Well, now it might be Zeke. I mean,
yeah. So if Ezekiel Elliott ends up signing with the Patriots, if they were happy enough with him, then I don't know how effective that Stevenson pick is going to be, as that's now your first running back where, yeah, he's going to catch a lot of passes that Ezekiel Elliott is not as good at doing. I mean, but even then, maybe somebody like a Rachaad White in the 7th round will step up if the Buccaneers end up not signing anybody to replace Lenny.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I would say punting on running back like this, I probably wouldn't have been so bold to do this, but it looks like the rest of the team through round 7 is pretty solid so far. Your first quarterback being Lawrence, second quarterback being Goff, and then taking some flyers on guys like Juju, who look like they're going to be the first wide receiver for that team. Jacoby Myers, you saw him last year with the Patriots, should be a solid number 2 behind Devontae Adams. And
how do you feel about Treylon Burks?
Treylon Burks, I think, is going to benefit from having DeAndre Hopkins there because with how weak that passing offense is.
Hopkins wasn't there at the time
when we drafted him. Yeah, he had not signed with Tennessee.
Yeah, so that it works out even better because I would argue that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a guy that's going to get doubled up a lot because he's getting older, but he's still got a lot of great separation skills that are going to get him wide open. And even when he's being doubled up, that's going to open up opportunities for guys like Treylon Burks to get fed. I would at least guess he's going to get fed anywhere between 3 to 6 targets a game. I would expect that range. And even then, if they're quality receiving yards, even better. And that's assuming that they remember how to throw the ball.
Yeah, that's now, my problem, is I don't know who's going to be throwing him the ball and how competent that's going to be.
Now, Logan, go ahead and explain the Burke story. Because...
So I wanted Burke so he was on the radar, like he was in the gun. I was making the case. But we decided if the 2 of us, the 3 of us were drafting. So if we couldn't come to a 2 versus 1 kind of victory when it comes to who we draft, then we would just go off our rankings. Well, Michael Thomas was higher than Burks in that situation. But I thought we made the agreement that if a guy was injured, we would go to the next guy. If I remember, I'm getting old, but I think that's how it went down. And so I skipped.
Our only agreement was if we couldn't decide on a guy, we would just let it auto draft the top pick. And to be honest, we were looking at wide receiver. It could have easily auto drafted a quarterback or anyone.
4 seconds left.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, we're just going to auto draft a guy. And the next thing that happens is Logan clicks draft on Treylon Burks at the last second.
Yeah, and Treylon Burks is not a bad accidental auto pick if that happened. Well, you said 4 seconds were left. That's not a bad flyer to take on because let's remember this guy was a first-round pick. He was the number 18th overall pick last year. that's pretty confident capital that you're spending on a guy who's definitely going to be starting. So that's why I'm thinking, hey, even if he doesn't get Hopkins' volume, he's still going to be a guy they're going to lean on. I don't remember his red zone tendencies. It's hard to remember stuff like that when you give Derrick Henry the ball all the time. But I like those chances on when did you guys draft him? I was
about to say, go up so we can see him in the draft right now. I can't see him on the board.
Yeah, I can't see him either.
Okay, yeah, so you got him in the 8th round. Yeah, I'm thrilled taking a Treylon Burks over an Odell Beckham, who's probably going to be the 3rd wide receiver in the Ravens
the way it goes, Odell was taken just before.
Exactly, and that's why I would much rather have Burks. Let them take Odell.
But looking at the stuff after, like, I think I would have rather have had Dotson or Sutton instead of Burks. Michael Thomas, maybe.
This was a big stir up. We have a great live reaction from.
And I do think it probably would have auto picked us Anthony Richardson.
And that's the thing about me. I told you I was transparent. Even if this lineup wins because of Burks, let's say we go all the way, I will still apologize to these guys because even if it works out, if it's a happy accident with Bob Ross, it was still 100% a misread by me, and it shouldn't have happened.
Well,
and so but those things happen, and like that's part of it. Like there are people on this board that are going to get injured and maybe not make the playoffs based purely on luck.
And we did a best ball basketball draft for the NBA, and Logan was the only one who really was on Russell Westbrook. Which we should have known he was going to be a fantasy guy anyway. But besides the point, we weren't high on Russell Westbrook. We were fine with being wrong about that. I think, didn't we end up with Westbrook still?
No,
we
didn't.
We didn't. But there were other guys too. Like I'm not mad about being wrong about Westbrook. Yeah.
We were very wrong about that. We're fine admitting that. So maybe we're completely wrong about Burks, and this time Logan got his random guy.
Well, that's a good one. We're about to wrap up because I want to be respectful of your time, but that's a good one. Why don't we go around table here? We'll go to our biggest take and our biggest fade, essentially. Like, what's the one thing you think for sure is going to happen, and the one thing it's like everyone believes that you do not? And I'll start if you want, so I can give you guys some time. One thing for me is everyone's talking about Hall with the Jets and how he's going to come back from his ACL and like he's going to be a difference maker. And Aaron, I'm taking the Jets under, man. I'm not high on the Jets at all. I don't like what they did there. I know Evan's from the NFC North as well, and this will sound like slander because you got a Lions. Aaron Rodgers is still good. I'm not saying he's Baker Mayfield. I'm not saying he doesn't belong as a starter. He's not the guy he was even a year ago. Like, it's almost like when a guy ages, you go from getting a hip replacement to your natural knee, and there's going to be a difference. And it doesn't got to be a long period of time before you see that transition. And I'm sorry, Aaron Rodgers has hit that transition. Like, he is a good quarterback, not a great quarterback anymore. I'm not buying the hype on the Jets at all. Like, I don't think Hall comes back and he's dominant. I'm not buying Aaron Rodgers. I'm way down on the Jets. I'm not just like they'll miss the playoffs. I don't think they'll be good. That's my boldest take. The take I think is most obvious is Matthew Stafford bounces back, the Rams win the division, and Van Jefferson finally puts together his best season. Anyone else got a take?
Yeah. I got a good one, I think.
You go ahead.
Yeah. I'm gonna say what I figured Logan was gonna say. I think this will be Kyle Pitts' year. He'll come back to looking like his rookie.
Don't say that, man. I love Kyle Pitts. Evan, you're a Kyle Pitts guy too?
I just traded for Kyle Pitts in Dynasty, and this is going to blow your minds. I have to tell you this real quick. I found the Kyle Pitts guy. He drafted him 101 overall in Dynasty in our rookie draft in 2021. He was desperate to get rid of him. I don't know why he was out on him. I traded Dalton Schultz and Dalvin Cook straight up for Kyle
Oh,
Pitts. I am
100%.
so happy.
Yep.
I am the biggest Kyle Pitts fan. I would probably throw him in a second round pick too, just to make sure I got him. I don't know what it is with it. Like, dude, I do not have that many blind spots. I'm an old man now. Like, my fandom has kind of weaned, making money on draft. Like, but for some reason, Kyle Pitts just has a pull on me, man. I love the potential of Kyle Pitts.
I'm waiting to see it again.
I'd have rather had Dalton Schultz.
No.
I'm not high on Pitts. I saw his rookie
We can
year.
debate this forever.
I don't believe the Falcons are ever going to do anything right with him. So, like, if I'm in Dynasty, I'll grab Kyle Pitts knowing he'll do better on his second team. So I'm drafting him for 2 years from now.
That's still a fine play. I mean,
like in a Dynasty League, you can do stuff like that. But, like, if I needed a tight end, I'm not going to get Kyle Pitts. If I have a tight end I'm starting the next 2 years, I can go and grab Kyle Pitts. In my mind.
What's your biggest fade then, Donnie? That's your biggest takeaway.
This Seahawks offense, I'm completely out on. I don't think it's going to look close to as good as it did last year. I don't think it. I don't even think it was that better, dude. Maybe it is. I'm out on it, especially if Kenneth Walker is actually injured and it's going to be a bad injury.
Smith, I don't know. I like Smith.
Okay, realistically, which offense do you think is worse, Seattle or Green Bay?
Green Bay, but that's because I think Green Bay's offense is awful. I think they're going to have one of the worst offenses.
I will say Jordan Love has looked really good, though. He's looked really good so far.
I try not to buy into the training camp hype.
Okay, Evan, what you got for us, buddy?
Okay, so this is probably going to make me sound like a hater in the NFC North, but the Minnesota Vikings offense, I think, is going to continue to be overrated. I think they did well in drafting Jordan Addison with one of their first-round picks. Actually, I think it was the only first-round pick this year. I expect him to immediately start as the number 2 wide receiver in that offense, but I would not be surprised if he is not targeted consistently throughout his time with the Minnesota Vikings with the present lineup they have. I think TJ Hawkinson is going to continue to eat away at Addison's volume, and I would not trust Jordan Addison, even drafted as high as in this league here. I'm out on Addison, and I ended up picking actually, I didn't get to pick him in my Dynasty rookie draft, but I grabbed Zach Charbonnet anyway. I'm happy to let anybody else grab Addison.
Yeah, we got Hawkinson in the 4th round in our best ball, which we were all really happy about that.
Beautiful.
I actually have the Vikings with the worst record in our season projections, which we are going to follow throughout the whole year. Like, we saved them. So I got to stand by it, but I think I'm with you. The Vikings have a terrible year.
And this is nothing on Kirk Cousins or the coaching staff. Their defense is going to force the offense back out on the field to throw a lot, which is great for fantasy, but I don't see Jordan Addison being a valuable asset yet because, first of all, he's always going to play second banana behind Justin Jefferson. So you know that it would have to probably take a Jefferson injury for him to be even more valuable. So if I'm looking to get a valuable wide receiver with this year's rookie dynasty draft, I'm going to look to other wide receivers.
And, especially in a dynasty draft, I think I don't know if this is something you look at, but we've seen he might not have the best decision-making. Already got in trouble for going 140 in his car. So, I don't know. At that, I'm out on him as a person. I would try to avoid him in fantasy if I could, but, you have to take some of your personal bias out of it.
I'm going to skip ahead just for a minute so Gov can get out of here because I know he's going to leave soon.
Oh, we're good. We're good. You got like 15 minutes before I got to.
Oh, you're good?
Same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your biggest take then, Evan? That's your biggest fade, right? The Vikings.
Sorry, take and fade?
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. So that's my biggest fade. My biggest take is that the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is going to be way better than most people expect with their wide receiver array of Pickens, Deontay Johnson, and now they added Allen Robinson as a veteran number 3. Kenny Pickett is not – I'm not going to go as far as to say that he's a great quarterback yet, but where George Pickens is available, I'm grabbing him, baby. And I can see he got taken with the 606 in your league.
Yeah, and I love the offensive firepower and this unique weapon of Washington as well from Georgia. Like the 6'8" tight end, giving your young quarterback a huge, massive target. It's just smart. Gov, what do you got for us, buddy?
Let's see. So, like, my biggest fade is probably Atlanta. Like, we know they're not going to be good, but I see, like, specifically Bijan. I see, like, you go up in the draft, and this is how it's happening in most drafts for that. He's one of the running backs going in the first round. Or like one of the 9 going in the first 2 rounds. I'm sorry. I don't see, like, from what I saw from Atlanta last year, I don't see him taking full-on volume from that backfield.
And they have a lot of talent.
It's going to be a split. There's going to be Cordero Patterson stuff in the back. You're going to see Algier. It's not going to be all Bijan's work. So he's not getting, like, massive volume. The only way he gets massive volume is if Atlanta does what they did last year, which is also run a near historic amount in situations you never did. Like, they were consistently running down 2 touchdowns in the 3rd and 4th quarter on 3rd and 4th down. Ridiculous. You never run. You don't run on 3rd and 10 down 2 touchdowns. Why are you doing that? And they did that like every game last year. I don't see Atlanta running that heavily again, so I don't see Bijan getting the volume that's going to pay off a first-round pick. Like, he is not – like, my other big fade is Austin Eckler. I think he's getting old. But I still think Austin Eckler is going to get a lot more work than Bijan. And it's just too much for me for a rookie. And I knew McCaffrey was going to get work out the gate when we drafted him a few years ago at the 8th overall pick. So, like, I've seen high-end running backs and the teams they go to. I don't think this Atlanta team is going to get, I just don't think it's going to be good enough unless he just comes out and looks like freaking, like,
Zeke his rookie year.
Yes, something. He's going to have to come out and break a bunch of 70-yard runs. That's what it is. Like, he's not going to have an offense that's going to get him and let him grind out 100 yards in a game on 20 carries. He's going to need to have 120-yard games and touchdowns on 12 to 14 carries. And as a rookie, I just don't see his efficiency doing that in the NFL.
Honestly, I think Gibbs has more of a chance to do that.
Like, maybe. Like, again, I don't think Bijan is going to, like, be that good. Not that he's going to be a bat. Not that he doesn't have talent. But I don't see the situation being so good that he should be like the second running back off the board in drafts.
Not to mention the offensive line isn't like anything to write home about.
And I don't care if it's Ritter or Heineke. Like, no quarterbacks helping him in RPO. Like, nothing. It's like, so, like, that's my biggest fade.
Would, but we don't expect Heineke to start.
Right. Yeah, so that's definitely my biggest fade is the Atlanta backfield. Like, I don't think Algier's going to do much. I love Cordero Patterson. I have for a while. I don't think he's doing anything. So, like, Atlanta in general, I don't like Pitts. I don't like London. Like, I think Atlanta might end up being get the number 1 pick. Like, they might be so bad.
Which might be the goal.
What's your biggest take, then, Gov?
My biggest take, and I've seen the injury, and I don't think it's nothing. I think, honestly, if it weren't for the fact that I don't believe in conspiracies that much, but I definitely see them everywhere, I would say it's just a conspiracy to give him the preseason off. I think Cincinnati takes over this league. I think by the end of this year, everyone will know Mahomes is good, and everyone will think Josh Allen should be able to get over that hump. But they're all going to be like, wow, Burrow is right there as like one of the greatest quarterbacks in our league right now. And Cincinnati is going to be good for a decade as long as he's healthy. And I think that cramp he got is just a way of giving him the preseason off because they said he'll be out a couple weeks. Guess what's a couple weeks from now? Week 1.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you play him anyway.
Yeah, you wouldn't play him in the preseason, but this is just a way to give him time off. Like, he can just rehab from a cramped leg. He can still do all his throwing drills off to the side. He can still toss it to Chase and Higgins. He just won't get hit. He won't have to put on the red T-shirt. for a
I
month.
remember when
like what would happen with like a lot of veteran quarterbacks get that. Peyton got that in the like once he knows the offense and it's just making sure he has a rhythm with the receivers, he can do that in throwing drills. He doesn't need to play preseason games and run 9-on-9s and all or 7-on-7s and shit. Like he doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, do you remember that year the Cowboys were on Hard Knocks when that was Dak's whole preseason and everything, that's it? And then he came out on fire, I think it was the first month of the season.
Right. I think for the guys who are like, they know their guys and they know the offense they're in after 3 or 4 years, you can cut them back a little bit. Like if it weren't for the fact that I don't trust him, this would have been the time you would do that for Kyler Murray. But we know he doesn't pay attention to football, and I don't trust that he knows his offense. So I wouldn't do that for Kyler Murray.
Hey, you're gonna force me to be the soccer mom that beeps the horn to tell the kids we're almost at soccer practice and we gotta wrap the thing up. As fun as it's been, as much high C and fructose you guys threw around and hot takes and sugar energy, I want to do this again, but we have a tight budget. We got to stay within a time structure, which is not usually my thing. I'm very proud of myself because usually I can ramble for hours and hours. I actually kept this ship somewhat afloat. So, Evan, thanks for joining us. Hopefully you can do it again. Hopefully we didn't embarrass ourselves and you actually enjoyed yourself and you want to come back because we'll have you anytime. These guys know me. Hopefully you guys like and subscribe, and we'll keep pushing out content. A bit different, but always entertaining. That's what we try to do.
Absolutely, fellas. It was fun. I'm glad to do this today.
Yeah, it was a good show.
Yeah, happy to have some extra input always.
More football coming back finally. It's been a long wait.
Oh, like I was about to say, if you have 5 minutes, pull up a showdown lineup. Let me see if I can build the showdown for tonight. Oh,
I got one if you're ready.
I've been thinking about it today because I remember showdown strategy.
Do you want to see mine, or do you want?
What do you got? Because I like Bell and Tillman as my captains.
Well, you might like mine then.
What did you build for the showdown tonight? Tillman, okay. Got to have the Cleveland quarterback. I would have both Cleveland quarterbacks in my mind personally.
I hate Kellen. Hold on, that's strong. I think Kellen Mond is not very good at all.
No, he's not. But they only have 2 quarterbacks, so most likely he plays a half.
No, they've already said that's going to happen. He's playing first half, and
so
the other one's second.
Yeah, so first half, Kellen Mond, if he can go out and get me 6 points at quarterback for a half of football, like go out and throw for 80 yards and not throw a pick or something, and get me 3 or 4 points. Do that, and I would definitely unless you think they're scoring all over the place, I would definitely have the defenses. They're just getting an automatic 10 points plus tax.
Every Hall of Fame game, the defenses seem to be just on par.
But that's my biggest fade because we're dealing with 2 offensive coordinators that took over, right? New offensive coordinators. I think they're going to want to show out tonight.
Maybe that's true. I could see that happening. And then you just go with all the offensive weapons
because of that.
See, and if that's the point, then I definitely want quarterbacks. I would definitely want both the Cleveland guys. I would want whichever one of the, not Zach Wilson, whichever one of the other 2 Jets guys you think.
Streffler, because he's the CFL runner.
Okay, yeah, I remember him. He has the most rushing upside, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's shown he can, show out.
Well, he got a chance. He got a chance. He can get you that 4.5 points he got you last year.
And then the Browns are only playing 2 tight ends tonight. So because they're not playing David, and then Harrison Bryant, I guess, got banged up in training camp. So if you're only going to play 2 tight ends the whole game, I'm going to take one of them.
That's Greeny?
Yeah, that's Greeny. And do you guys know anything about this guy? Apparently, this Brownlee guy has gotten a ton of hype. I guess even Adam Scheffler was tweeting about him. So
I have not heard the name at all.
So their top wide receivers are Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard. They got Randall Cobb back in there just for the hell of it. And did they still have Corey Davis?
Yes.
They do.
Okay, so I don't see where Jason Brownlee is going to fit in after the preseason.
I agree, but tonight they're saying like apparently he's turned heads and like
and this is a game where you're not going to see Lazard. You're probably not going to see Garrett Wilson.
No, absolutely.
Random Cobb.
Yeah, no, I'm stuck with my dynasty mindset of, okay, is this guy going to be worth a flyer on for your taxi squad, or is he just somebody just let somebody else take a chance on? But if he shows out in tonight's game, I would definitely expect a lot of people to grab him.
Because how many no-namers get like recognition at this point of the year from Adam Scheffler? That happened. So
that's a good point.
I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and see if he's worth it.
And it's preseason. Like the great thing about this is like everyone has the same salary. You can just fit whatever 6 guys you like.
Right. Evan, I'll give you the last word. Anything you want us to plug before we get you out of here?
Just find me on Barely Fantasy at Twitter. It's the Bear is BEAR, of course, having to be a Chicago Bears fan, repping the true team of the NFC North.
So sad.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Wait,
it's like
that comes from the Panthers fan.
Yeah, I am sitting here. Okay, no. Trust me. I'm sitting here since the day we drafted him with everything clinched as tight as can, waiting for him to not get hurt. So don't trust me. I'm not. But yes. Okay.
So that's where you can find me on Twitter. Sorry. Yeah, that's okay. That's where you can find me on Twitter if you just want to talk Dynasty or just talk smack about NFL teams, especially if you're an NFC North guy.
Hey, like I told you, I hope you enjoyed smacking your gums on here with us because we will have you back anytime, man. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Love this tonight, guys. Take care.
Have a good one, everyone.
Peace out.